Hello, hello.
Hello, Emma Chase. How are you?
I'm great. How are you, Vanessa?
Good to see you. Welcome, everybody.
Welcome, welcome. I guess we'll just give everyone a quick minute to file in.
Yeah, and as you file in, we'd love to know where you're coming from, what your vantage point is, what category you're working in. We've had a lot of people that have registered for today from so many different vantage points. We have CPG, we have healthcare, we have agencies. We also have the automotive sector that's in the house. So there's a number of different vantage points. And as we go through the conversation, would love to just have an understanding of where you're from and where you're coming from so that we can ensure that some of the feedback and some of the commentary is tailored towards you.
Absolutely. So feel free, get in the chat, introduce yourself. If you have any questions at all, feel free to populate the chat with those as well. We're going to be doing a quick Q&A at the end. And with that, shall we get going?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to Winning with the Wellness-Seeking Consumer, understanding where wellness shows up in real choices. I am Emma Chase LaFlamme, Client Solutions Manager at IMI, and I'm here with Vanessa Topizer, Senior Vice President at IMI, and we are really excited to chat wellness with you all today, so thank you very much for joining. If this isn't your first rodeo on an IMI webinar, then you know that our team is deeply dedicated to advancing thought leadership across a multitude of marketing topics. We post a ton of content on our website, blogs, playbooks, past webinars, so please feel free to go check those out as well. As always, if there is something that is keeping you up at night, if you have a burning question or just want to go deeper into the insight, we are always here to chat. But for those that are new here, let me give you a quick rundown of what we are all about. At IMI, our focus is to help brands really ground themselves in the voice of the consumer. So what that often looks like is making sure that brands are armed with the insight they need to take action in ways that actually move people and drive meaningful growth for their businesses. At a time where there's so much data out there, it's important more than ever to have the right insight to help guide you forward with confidence and momentum. So without further ado, let's get into it, Vanessa.
Let's get into it. We can see some people in the comments giving their vantage point. Welcome, Marcus. Welcome, Kat. Welcome, Davide. Really, really nice to see you guys. We had so many questions on wellness that have come in. It's obviously a really hot topic for businesses and for brands alike. Before we jump into wellness specifically, just want to take a bit of a step back and so that we can understand what's going on in our consumers' world, because as the voice of the consumer, this is exactly where we play an integral role. And if you think about this from your perspective as well, consider all the priorities in your life. You have your day, your home, your family, your relatives, your friends, your future. You're thinking about work, you're thinking about finances, and we own over 1,000 different brands, products, and services in a year. That's a lot. Yeah. And every single day we encounter 2,500 touch points that influence everything from our family to work to health to money and more. And so that's really a lot going on in our world on a day-to-day basis. And so this is why getting so clear on who you are focused on, why you exist in their lives, and how you connect is so absolutely critical. When you're laser sharp and you're laser clear, you can break through the clutter. When you're not, and when you're saying too many things and you don't have a clear purpose in the person's life, it's really difficult to break through all those 2,500 touch points that we have in a given day. So that's what leads us to really looking to understand also what drives people to buy, because as the voice of the consumer, Emma Chase mentioned, we are so deep into thought leadership, and our core focus is to help build businesses and also help empower people. And so because we have so much insight at our fingertips, we want to bring to you what's going to be helpful as you go along in your day so that you sort of come out of your regular day-to-day. We help bring you out of the trees, open up your vantage point so you can march forward with insight and with purpose. And so when we look at consumers specifically, and we have a whole webinar on this as well, if you're interested, it's on our website. Purchase drivers really roll up to 12 different themes. So there's brand product specific. And Emma Chase, we talk a lot about building trust with consumers. 70% of consumers purchase because it's a brand that they trust. So if you don't have it, build it. If you have it, keep it, and make sure you stay true to it. Wellness, as well as delivery, digital, emotional, the power of making somebody feel good, especially with everything going on in our worlds right now, everything in the media, everything in the world. If you as a brand, an organization, or a service can make someone feel good, that is directly going to impact purchase. There's also promotional, obviously pricing is in there. People love value. I love value. Emma Chase loves value, although we will spend on certain things. Yes, we will. And then there's influence in store, sample interaction. That one-to-one is so incredibly important. Recommendation reviews, social media, and then let's not forget traditional media. Really important, especially for certain categories, for framing the emotion and bringing people in and setting the stage before you drive that transaction. So we do dig into these a little bit deeper, but at a high level, these are the 12 that we look at. Now, so today we're going to talk about wellness, and we're really focused on physical wellness. People who want to be healthy and purchase because a product is healthy. Those are our two vantage points. Those are the two passion points that we are pulling out of IMI's Pulse platform to bring the insight for today. So we always like to start with what is the size of the prize, because knowing what is absolutely essential is what's going to move you forward. And we want to make sure that you are focused on the essential and you're getting rid of the noise. So what is the size of the prize with relation to this consumer? 243 million North Americans have made a purchase because the product is healthy in the past 12 months. Now that's age 13 to 63. And it's very similar across all of North America. It's a really big number. And so that's a lot of consumers that if you are looking to dive into this space, that you are looking to move. Now, when we look at our Pulse platform, again, it's a win now passion. You can see that the momentum is really growing in this space. So this is purchased because a product is healthy. 70% engagement in the last 12 months. So that's purchased in the last 12 months, and 37% intensity daily, weekly. We're going to park that for a minute because we're going to talk about the divide. But what we want to really land here with the audience is that it is a win now passion, and there is very strong momentum. Intensity is increasing alongside engagement, and that also signals the strong momentum. You can see plus 11% increase in intensity, and so that's daily, weekly purchases because a product is healthy. So what you want to see is engagement rising because that's the want and need from a larger perspective, but you also want to see intensity rising because that's going to drive your frequency. And so we see both rising here. And the proportion of those who are excited, care about purchasing because a product is healthy is in the top 25% of all measured passion points. And at IMI, we have clear action standards where we talk about the top 10% is your checkered flag. Just go for it and don't look back. Green is top 25%, and that's very strong and good momentum. And then we go into the yellows and the reds, which are, you need a little bit more work there. But the reality here is that it's the top 25%. So it's really strong passion point for consumers right now. And when you look at engagement is one thing, but to excite is really at another level. If somebody's excited about something, it's going to drive momentum and they're more likely to do it. And so a little bit of perspective on excite there. And when we look at not only purchasing because the product is healthy, but people wanting to be healthy, there is tremendous excitement. And you can see the numbers are very much elevated there across all demographics. So it's not really a steady state demand. It is accelerating engagement and intensity around health, and also purchasing because of it are absolutely rising. So at this point, we actually wanted to throw it out to you guys and understand what you think. What percentage of people say they only eat healthy food? Now, spoiler alert, we have presented this before. So if you are an IMI OG, you likely know what the response is, but we'll test it. What do you think, Emma Chase? What have we heard along this line?
I feel like we get really mixed responses to this question. And I think, you see people that really have faith in in consumers of, really striving and going through on the action that they're promising of being healthy. I think sometimes the only part really trips people up, like only eating healthy food. I know we all have our indulgences. I think it's pretty difficult to maintain eating only healthy food. So I think this is an interesting one where we always get a lot of different answers to this question. So I see that we already have a D. All right. Oh, we have a B. Okay. So already both scales believing a little bit more in consumers' ability to stay healthy.
Yeah, it is a very polarizing. Oh, then we have a C as well. Okay, so we're getting the full gamut here.
Yeah.
And I mean, we can all think about our own perspectives, but it's also really important to understand that we live in subjective points of view. And so understanding the greater consumer sentiment, we are surprised all the time about things that we thought were true. And then we go out and we actually talk to the consumer and they say something completely different. And especially with so much data that is accessible right now, truly going to the authentic consumer and going straight to the source is essential. So
absolutely.
We have A. Okay, what do you think, Emma Chase?
All right, let's give it away.
We see that some people have done their homework here. It is 62% of people say they only eat healthy food. So it's a pretty high number, but there are gaps in people's behaviors. And so 62% say they only eat healthy food, quite a large number, but there's still room for indulgences. And so this is where we call the say-do gap. And the math really isn't lining up here, where 80% eat fast food, 76% eat candy, and 75% drink soda. But 62% say they only eat healthy food. So there is still room for you, fried chicken. And there is still room for the indulgences, and of course, really happy to see, KFC and everything that they are doing in this space, looking to reclaim their territory and understanding that, while you can lean into the health, there also is room for the indulgences, and taste is always number one.
Yeah.
So that's also where we see the say-do gap, where intentions aren't always reality. The guys standing on the cliff are thinking that maybe they're going to do it, but there's only one guy who's actually doing the deed and jumping off the cliff. And so you really have to understand intentions, but you really need to study behaviors and what people are actually doing to see where your sweet spot is. And although it is accelerating, this is the moment that we just wanted you to park just for a minute when we mentioned this before. Purchasing because a product is healthy is more of an occasional event than it is high frequency. And so 70% purchase annually, but 37% purchase weekly. And so there is a very big divide when it relates to frequency there. And so the category really lives in the psychological trade-offs. Every decision is a micro negotiation. And I mean, I have these every day.
Yeah.
I want to do better. And then I go and I eat my gummy worms and I feel pretty good about it. And Emma Chase, I know you have this as well, where it's, I deserve this versus I should be doing this. And so there is that psychological trade-off. And over intent is high, but consistency is not. So there's a clear gap between wanting to be healthy and actually acting on it. And we're going to talk about a little bit about the whys behind this in a little bit. So just to land this section, one, health is no longer a niche, it's mainstream, it's a growth accelerator. 1 in 4 consumers are actively buying into it. and it's a high demand space. Momentum is building and it's getting stronger. And so think about that from your vantage point. And I see participation is here. So people want to do it. It's about understanding, how do you tap into what is most meaningful to them, and that cause and effect as well. And we can talk about that later. There's 11% lift in excitement signals. It's not a plateau. It is acceleration, but there is the opportunity to close the aspiration and action gap, while also knowing that there is room for both health and indulgence to coexist.
Yeah.
So high intent, high momentum space. The brands that win are going to be the ones that make healthy feel absolutely effortless. So it can just streamline into the consumers' lives.
All right, so let's go a little bit deeper here and look at some of the differences that appear between demographics. So both men and women are increasingly purchasing because the product is healthy, though growth is more significant among males. So you can see here that there's been a steady growth from males starting at around 58% purchasing a product because it's healthy in 2019, with a steady climb to 72% in 2025. For women, it's been slightly more consistent. So starting at 66% in 2019, with a little dip in 2020, which I can understand. I was definitely not on my health game that year. And I am so glad that the data shows that I am not alone, to now with a steady incline at 69% today. But before we go any deeper, we always love to put you guys on the hot seat. So let's get some answers going on which generation is most likely to purchase a product because it is healthy.
A lot of talk about this one, Emma Chase, and we actually did a whole series on Gen Z. Stop Scrolling, Start Connecting was the name of it, and we saw some. I'm not going to give it away, but we did see some surprising insight as it related to Gen Z. Millennials are always up for debate.
Yeah.
Boomers, we know that health and wellness is absolutely essential to that generation, with aging, with seeing, the effects of aging and wanting to stay healthy for longevity of life. What do you guys think? What do you guys think in the audience? A, B, C, or D?
Yeah, it's always interesting. And we will get into Gen Z a little bit later. But it always fascinates me, the replies generationally to these types of questions, because it always becomes more evident there's some clear biases against certain generations, and they always kind of float to the surface in these types of questions. So it's always very intriguing. Oh, we haven't all of the above, that's a bold answer. I love that.
I don't know. Is that cheating in the chase? Like, is
I'm
that
not sure, Davide? Huh. Love for that one. All right, we got some millennials, Gen X. Oh, we have one Gen Z. Okay, very interesting. All right, should we give it away, Vanessa?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so a little bit of a trick question there. So it's both millennials and boomers. So they are the two generations that have health as a purchase driver. So with Gen X closely following at 71%, and then Gen Z left slightly in the dust at 67%. So it's safe to say that generations engage with health in different ways. But before we go any further, and I feel like I'm going to keep saying this, we want to put you on the hot seat again and ask, which generation do you think feels the best about themselves? So whether that would be Gen Z, millennials, Gen X, or boomers. I love these questions.
Yeah, it's really interesting to see their responses as well.
Yeah.
So Gen Z, millennials, Gen X, and boomers, all very different life stages. Obviously, Gen Z, there's multi parts to Gen Z. There's the younger Gen Z, there's the older Gen Z. Lots of people in different life stages. Millennials, more with, younger children and probably running around a lot if you do have children, and Gen X as well. Boomers, a little bit more in the relaxation mode, perhaps. So we have D, boomers,
Yeah.
B, millennials. And it's funny, the millennial conversation, because, I remember studying millennials a ton when I was leading brands at Coca-Cola. because they were the up and coming generation, and you always need to know what's next. And millennials did feel pretty good about themselves at the time. Things are changing with this cohort, obviously, as they change their life stages. But all right, so should we?
Let's give it away. All right, so it is boomers. So baby boomers feel good about themselves the most out of all generations, which is a significant part of health and well-being. Although you can see here, they do speak about mental health a little bit less than any other generation. Along with feeling good, boomers also feel far less guilt around indulgence. So generally, the older the generation, the less guilt they feel for treating themselves, although Gen Z is slightly lower than millennials, but almost at par there. Boomers also take more time to relax. I really feel like I'm selling the concept of aging right now.
I think it sounds pretty good to me.
Well. But in all likelihood, this is probably due to being retired, having more free time on their hands, although I'll say it's always nice to have something to look forward to. We also see differences based on income. So higher income households, which would be around 100K plus, over-index on purchasing because a product is healthy. This is likely due to an accessibility gap. So it's a great moment to think about how your brand can make healthy choices feel more accessible for a lower income bracket as well. On a similar note, the gap between intention and action also starts to close the higher the income. You can see here with those in a 100 to 190K income bracket, 87% are engaged with being healthy and 81% are actually purchasing a product because of it. So only a 6% difference there. With those at a household income of over 200K, 81% say they're engaged with being healthy, but even more of them say that they are purchasing a product because it's healthy at 83%. So something we can take away from these slides is that health is still a premium behavior. Access, affordability, and convenience are all barriers to action. But as we like to do here at IMI, let's focus on the opportunity that this brings. I want you to ask yourself, how can your brand, product, or service tap into this want and need to be healthy? And what can you do to motivate and drive accessibility?
Yeah, and there really is a sweet spot there, Emma Chase, where the accessibility gap is real, but it's also potentially perceptions as well. And so thinking about that from your vantage point, I mean, price. You don't just want to focus on price because it is a drive to the bottom from a profitability perspective. But how do you make sure that if you are in the health and wellness space, you are communicating more about it, you are talking about it, you are going into categories or into areas or into products where it is a little bit more accessible to the everyday consumer and not only for the higher income?
Absolutely.
So let's switch gears a little bit and talk about connection points, because understanding what matters to those who purchase because a product is healthy is important for you to understand as a brand, product, or service. How can you best connect with these people? Because that connection is where everything happens. Because if you're not out there, you literally don't exist in their minds. So when you look at it, environmental causes are top of mind. 80% find forest protection is an issue. 79% find water pollution to be an issue. And this isn't all the environmental causes. They're also more concerned with social justice and equality at 77%. And so this is indexing higher than general population. And just as health is a purchase driver, these purchasers are also concerned with broader health causes. And so 73% consider access to healthcare services to be an issue. 70% consider physical fitness to be an issue. And the health engaged segment over-indexes meaningfully on brands that are good for you, for your community, and for the planet. And so there is that holistic view. If you look here, there's Gen Pop in Canada, and then health engaged, it's double digits in terms of purchase because a brand supports health and wellness, made locally, still really strong. 65% of Canadians are purchasing because a product is made in Canada, made locally, or supports Canada. and in the US as well, but heightened for health engaged. And then environmentally friendly supports charities and support eliminating climate change. So health isn't just functional, it's also values driven. And so consumers connect health with the environment, community, but also impact. So it's very holistic. So when we look at what this means for your brand, don't just isolate health and positioning. Winning brands will connect with personal health. So what's in it for the consumer? Why should they care? But also community impact and thinking about your broader marketing initiatives, who you're partnering with, how you're showing up, where you're showing up, and also environmental responsibility. So it really is a holistic approach. And consider how to address the excitement of being healthy, focusing on the outcome. So remember, and we can all get really excited about the brands and the products and the services that we are supporting and we are looking to drive, and we sit in our seats and in our boardrooms and we talk about it, but it has to be about what's in it for them. And that's if you're a big brand, a small brand, a startup, growth stage. Emma Chase and I have been doing some work, and we were just emceeing the Venture Park Summit last week, and that's a lot of founders, startups, scaling brands as well. Always remember that passion will drive you, and it's very, very important, but you have to remember that what's in it for the consumer at the end of the day, because it's really about them.
Yeah.
And so let's talk about what are the core drivers of purchase decisions. Health engaged consumers are more responsive across every touch point. So when you think about where are you going to be to get their eyeballs, there is more response across every touch point. So because they saw it in store, a TV commercial, and that's where the emotional play can come. A brand sponsored something that I believe in, that's the shared values that comes into play there. Browsing on Amazon, browsing Costco, love Costco, and following a brand social media page, as well as recommendation from a friend. And so they're more responsive across every touch point. So this audience is actually easier to move than we might think. The health engaged consumers, they're more responsive at every touch point, especially when brands show up through trusted channels and communities, because they care more about values, so they actually pay more attention. So they're more responsive to retail messaging because they're paying more attention. They're more receptive to storytelling, and that's TV sponsorship, if you think about your activations, because they pay more attention. And they're more trusting of signals from friends and affiliations as well, because they're more interested and they pay more attention. So what does this mean for your brand? One, don't over-optimize the lower funnel. These consumers are influenceable earlier in the journey, and the upper funnel investment does pay off. Invest in who you partner with. So sponsorships, affiliations, community, high impact. It's a shortcut to trust. And so be very choiceful about who you are partnering with. And our Sponsor Policy team has a ton of insight into that, as does IMI through Pulse. And so understanding what the true alignment is with the consumer that you're looking to move, and what brands they trust, where they show up, what athletes, what influencers they align with. That's a true shortcut to trust. And build those advocacy systems. So referral, community, it's not just a nice to have, because those one-to-one referrals will help drive your momentum. And that is that's the cheapest way for your marketing to get out there and your brand to get out there. And think about an integrated approach win. So it's not just one. You have to show up at shelf, and you have to show on your packaging exactly why people should purchase you and pick you up. Be very clear. You need to show up with your messaging in social. Be very clear. 1, 2, or 3 messages. Know what's going to resonate. Know what's in it for them. and that's what you should drive home and get rid of the noise. So how do they spend some of their downtime? They are generally more engaged with physical health-based activities in the US and in Canada. The health-engaged consumer also engages more in the arts in terms of driving wellness, so drawing and painting, a little bit of singing there, some baking and some and cooking as well. Now, this is a really interesting part because in Canada, physical wellness activities are more mainstream. However, in the US, there's a greater divide. So you probably need to be more targeted. Probably not surprising. It's obviously a larger country. There's different values across the country. There is a little bit more of a divide in terms of the general population. So you do need to get a little bit more targeted. And this also rings true across mental health-based activities. There is a little bit more of a divide in the US specifically.
All right, let's do a little dive into Gen Z, my favorite cohort to look at. I'm always so excited to get into it about Gen Z. So let's dive in. So earlier in the presentation, we talked about millennials and boomers being the most driven to purchase a product because it is healthy. And here we just want to highlight again that Gen Z is the least likely to purchase because of that. But with that said, health as a purchase driver is still growing among Gen Z. It's not as strong as a driver as it is with other generations, but that number has grown by 11% since 2019. The thing is that Gen Zs are engaged and excited to eat healthier. So 70% of them want to eat healthier, and even more importantly, 36% are excited to do so. Vanessa gave some perspective on Excite as a metric earlier, so I just want to remind everyone that 36% is actually a very strong excitement number. With that said, like every generation, there is room to close that gap between intention and action. So while 67% have purchased a product because it's healthy in the past year, only 33% of Gen Zs are doing so weekly. But that number is also growing. So in 2019, only 25% of Gen Zs were purchasing a product because it is healthy weekly, which has grown 8% to date. Something we found really interesting in the data is that out of all generations, Gen Z is the least likely to value nutrition. So although they are engaged and excited to be healthy and are increasingly opting to purchase healthier products, they're the least concerned with nutritional value. So if you are a brand that is trying to target this cohort, then it's a really good moment to think about how you communicate healthy to Gen Z outside of nutritional value. In summary, the reality is that Gen Z lives in a world where wellness can mean taking care of and also treating themselves. But we see this in their excitement in both eating healthy and indulgent food. They're most excited about eating fruit. And I mean, I get it. I also get really excited when raspberries are on sale these days, but they also get pretty excited about rewarding themselves with a snack, eating candy, and eating fried food. So this is really a generation that values both worlds and allows them to coexist. So what does this mean for your brand if you are trying to connect with Gen Z? Number one, lead with relevance, not credentials. Nutritional first positioning is not the most compelling to this cohort. Health needs to feel relevant to their lives, how they actually live, and not just what's on a label. Your brand can also help close the gap between intention and action. So being interested in healthy living does not just automatically lead to consistent purchase behavior. Winning Gen Z in this context requires making healthy choices feel easy, intuitive, and worth choosing in the moment. And lastly, act like a Gen Z. Embrace a both and mindset. Healthy, indulgent choices are not in conflict. They very much coexist. So brands that allow for space for both the take care and the treat myself will feel more naturally aligned with how Gen Zs are actually making decisions.
Amazing. So before we get into questions, we're just going to summarize a few key takeaways. Number one that we want you to go away with is health is now a mainstream, high impact driver of choice. We see it in the numbers. We see it in the excitement. Hundreds of millions are purchasing for health. signaling a major sustained shift in demand. 2, health interest is accelerating with rising engagement and excitement. So growth and excitement and future intent signals say that this is a fast-moving, expanding space. And as we saw in our Pulse platform, this is growing in momentum, and it is a activate now space. A clear gap does exist between health intent and behavior. They aspire, but indulgence remains frequent and embedded in everyday choices. So it's not health all the time. It's there, it's growing. We need to play a role in it. And if you are a brand, product, or service looking to get into this space, it is going to be a viable business option. But it's not everything all the time. So there are everyday choices. And health decisions are shaped by constant trade-offs between discipline and reward, and everyday choices reflect a balance between wanting to feel good and wanting to indulge. And so there is room for both. And really the opportunity lies in making health easier, accessible, and actionable. So winning brands will reduce the barriers and help consumers translate motivation into consistent real-world behavior. And when you look at the income gap and the want and the excitement, but then the action and the divide there, it's a big signal for us as brands, product, services, and business owners to lean into that and ensure that we make it more accessible, not only from a messaging perspective, because that also enhances accessibility and a connection perspective, but also looking at products and services that can, slide in there with those that cannot necessarily afford the larger ticket items. And I think that that's all we had from the programming. Why don't we get into some questions, Emma Chase? And if you have any questions in the crowd, then please, send them our way. And if we can't get to them today, then, perhaps we can book a conversation. We're always happy to chat about anything brand and consumer to help you on your way.
Absolutely. We did receive some questions beforehand, which is fantastic. We love that. We love the chance to be able to, go out and grab some extra insight or data in order to answer those for you guys. So one of the first questions that we had was, how important is natural in consumers' definition of healthy today?
It's a really good question. And actually we dug into, I don't know if the person who was answering this question has downloaded our trusted transactions report, because it talks about the fact that all natural is a very key driver of trust, and trust is essential to purchase. But when we look at the question here, all natural remains one of the most powerful and efficient wellness claims available to brands. I absolutely recommend saying all natural if you can. The strength really lies in its simplicity. It's 2 words that communicate trust, familiarity, and wellness. And 2 words just like great tasting, which is also strong, sometimes stronger, but again, depends on the category. If you're in food and beverage, great tasting is going to be essential to say. And so, all natural really does live in wellness. And if you can say it, it does have triggers that are very beneficial from a consumer perspective.
Amazing. All right. We had another question. As consumers increasingly seek proactive approaches to health and wellness, how should healthcare and wellness providers design, position, and deliver services to meet evolving expectations?
Yeah, and I think that this question came from a service provider looking to perhaps open up a practice or expand their practice in the realm. The biggest challenge in wellness is the gap between intentions and actions, and success really comes from making the choices easier. And so what I would say to you in your circumstance specifically, understand the tensions of the people that are in your surrounding area that you're looking to service. And if your surrounding area is national because you're going to be online, then that's a different approach. But really understanding what's going on with the people that you're looking to reach, And then once you know what's happening with them, then you can determine how best you can play a role in releasing that tension. And so if you think about it as, there's a tension, there's a concern, and how do you solve it? So, it's also cause and effect. And so if you understand what's most prevalent with those that you're looking to connect with and solve for, then you can determine how to layer it so that it's of, what's of benefit to them and show them the result. And never, as well, the one last thing I want to mention with this one is never go into the negative realm, because people don't want to see the negativity. They want to see the outcome. They want to see the positivity. So what are you going to do for them, and how are you going to make them feel? And that's really where the sweet spot is.
Yeah, absolutely. We had another question around home. So how is wellness extending beyond what people eat, drink, or consume, and increasingly influence how they design, experience, and invest in their home environments?
It's a good question. The first thing that we want to talk about here is that physical wellness is only one part of overall wellness. And so, home plays a role in this. There are, 8, 9 dimensions of wellness specifically. There's physical, there's mental, there's emotional, there's social, financial, environmental, occupational, and career wellness. That's a big one, especially these days. Spiritual wellness and community wellness. And so thinking about that holistically, the home is really the hub of so many things right now. And so home is absolutely important. And I know that, more people are going out, people are going to events, they want to go out and they want to be part of a community, and they want to connect live. They absolutely do. Yeah. And more people are also being, asked to come back into the office. And so there's 3 days, 4 days, 5 days, but home has really become the hub. It's no longer just where people live. It's where they work. It's where they sleep. It's where they exercise. It's where they recover. It's where they also connect with others, family and friends on a smaller scale. And that's really important to consumers right now. Big events are important, but people want to connect with the ones that they love at those big events, not with the hundreds of millions of people. And so, as a result, consumers are increasingly investing in healthier home environments. And so if you're looking to get into that space, it is a very sustainable and prevalent space right now.
Amazing.
Hope that answered the question.
Yeah, no, that was fabulous. I think we have time for a couple more. So we had another question here. Many wellness challenges are well understood, yet behavior change remains difficult. What moves a health issue from being perceived as a nice to have to a genuine personal priority?
So most people already know what they should do. And like we said, like awareness is not the issue. It's actually making it happen. And what happens, and this is with charity and cause as well, and Laura Janes from IMI talks a lot about charity and cause, and we're going to have another webinar on that coming up in September, I believe. But health really becomes a priority when it becomes personal.
Yeah.
Right. And so if you think about the generations as well, it will be personal to some Gen Z, but it's not as prevalent with Gen Z. So they want to do it. They are purchasing it because it's the thing to do. Right. Yeah. They know it's the right thing to do, but they're not experiencing it. And I'm saying it in a general statement themselves. So, think about a diagnosis, think about aging, think about family, people that are close to you. Everybody really reacts with the community that is closest to them, the people that they care about and they love the most. And so while the greater world is important, what is most important to people is what's around them and what's surrounding them and what means something to them. And so that's themselves, that's their family, that's their community, some of their, like maybe their work colleagues, and what's closer in. So that's going to move the consumer towards where you're looking to go. It has to be meaningful to them.
Amazing. Okay, I think we can squeeze in one more question.
We're
going to end on a really hot topic. How will AI influence how consumers discover, evaluate, and act on wellness information over the next 5 years?
Love this question. So much about AI, and actually, when you think about insight and data right now, there's so much that's available, and that's why it's also so important to go to a reputable source and go straight to the consumer.
Yeah.
There is, AI is increasingly becoming the primary source for information across the board, including wellness information. So if you are not prevalent in AI searches, then you need to be, because people are not going to multiple websites anymore. They are actually going directly to their AI source. There is a interesting tension here because 60% are scared of AI, but 55 have or will get health tips and recommendations from AI. So it is a first touch point, but then the landing will be going to something that you trust. And so AI will be a source of information, but understanding, where it actually takes you to. Is it a reputable source? Is it trusted? Are there recommendations and reviews? Are they over 4.3? What are they saying about themselves? That messaging is still going to be absolutely essential, even though they will first search for you within AI.
Yeah, amazing. All right, everyone. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. If you have any burning questions that are still on your mind, if you want to brainstorm, if you're curious about our insights, or all of the above, we would love to hear from you. We'd love to keep in touch. We have our QR codes that send you to our LinkedIn profiles up there. Always happy to talk more about wellness. This is a subject that we are both very, very passionate about. So any further questions, please get in touch. But it was great to have you all join today. Thank you so, so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Emma Chase.
Thank you, Vanessa.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.